Marcus Washington, a black maintenance technician, was ending another long night shift when a violent crash echoed through the building. He ran toward the sound and suddenly found the company's CEO trapped inside an elevator, terrified and calling for help. Marcus pried open the control panel, sparks flying against his face. The wires were live, the air thick with smoke, but he didn't stop until the doors finally slid open. The CEO stumbled out, trembling and silent, while Marcus quietly packed his tools and walked away, unaware that what would happen the next morning would change both their lives forever. Before we dive deeper into this story, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories every day. Marcus Washington, a 42-year-old black maintenance technician, understood the hidden corners of Sterling Innovations better than the blueprints themselves. That February evening, he moved through his familiar routine with practiced ease, his faded work uniform and weathered hands telling the story of 2 decades spent keeping buildings alive. He methodically inspected every circuit breaker, every cable connection, every switch and relay in the downtown Seattle building. The work was repetitive, thankless even, but Marcus understood what depended on it. Lives could hang on a single loose wire, a single overlooked fault. He was always the last to leave, long after the executives had rushed to their dinner reservations and theater tickets. The familiar smell of electrical components and machinery oil had become a kind of comfort, drowning out the day's small humiliations, the way people looked past him in hallways, the conversations that stopped when he entered a room, the subtle shift in tone when managers realized they were speaking to just the maintenance guy. On the building's top floor, in an office larger than Marcus's entire apartment, sat Harrison Fletcher, the 63-year-old CEO of Sterling Innovations. Marcus knew him only as a figure glimpsed through closing elevator doors or mentioned in hushed reverent tones by junior staff. Fletcher was a legend in the tech world, old money, old power, the kind of man who'd built an empire and knew it. Marcus also knew that in this building, an invisible but absolute divide separated people like him from people like Harrison Fletcher. It was a gap measured not in floors but in assumptions about worth, about intelligence, about who deserved respect and who was lucky just to have a job. He'd grown accustomed to it, the way certain employees would call him only when something was broken, never bothering to learn his name. The way his suggestions about aging infrastructure were dismissed with patronizing smiles. The way his presence was tolerated but never quite welcomed. Marcus was finishing his rounds in the main lobby, mentally calculating whether he could afford new shoes this month, or if the duct tape would hold another few weeks, when a sound froze him in place. A deep, grinding thud echoed from the executive elevator bank, followed by an electrical pop that made the overhead lights flicker. Then came silence, not the comfortable quiet of an empty building, but the unnatural stillness that means something has gone very wrong. Marcus's instincts kicked in immediately. He grabbed his toolkit and ran toward the source of the sound, his heart already racing with the certainty that someone was in trouble. Inside the sealed metal box suspended between floors, Harrison Fletcher experienced something he hadn't felt in 40 years of ruthless business dealings, pure primal terror. The elevator had shuddered violently, groaned like a wounded animal, then stopped with a sickening jolt that threw him against the wall. Darkness swallowed everything. The emergency lights should have activated. Fletcher had personally approved the budget for them, but nothing happened. Just suffocating, complete blackness. His breath came in short, sharp gasps. The air felt thick, unbreathable. The walls seemed to press inward, and with them came memories he'd buried deep, being locked in a closet at age 7 by an older cousin, screaming until his voice gave out, the smell of mothballs and terror. Harrison Fletcher, who'd faced down hostile boardrooms and billion-dollar lawsuits without blinking, who'd built an empire through sheer force of will and strategic ruthlessness, found himself reduced to that terrified 7-year-old boy in the dark. His hands trembled as he fumbled for his phone. Dead. Of course it was dead. He'd been too important, too busy to charge it. The irony would have been amusing if he could breathe properly. Help. His voice cracked, sounding pathetically weak even to his own ears. Someone help me. The panic built like a wave, drowning rational thought. Fletcher began pounding on the doors, his fists making hollow, useless sounds against the metal. He yanked the emergency lever down repeatedly, unaware that each pull was sending electrical surges through an already compromised system, making rescue more dangerous with each passing second. The darkness pressed closer, his chest felt tight, constricted. Childhood claustrophobia, dormant for decades beneath layers of success and control, roared back to life. He wasn't a CEO anymore. He wasn't Harrison Fletcher, the man who'd been profiled in Fortune magazine. He was just scared, alone, and utterly helpless. "Is anyone there?" he shouted again, his voice ragged with panic. "Please, I'm trapped." Outside the elevator shaft, Marcus had already identified the problem. The main cable system was intact, that was good. But the control panel showed a cascade failure in the safety circuits, likely triggered by the violent stop. Worse, someone inside was repeatedly triggering the emergency lever, sending dangerous electrical feedback through the system. "Sir, can you hear me?" Marcus called through the door seam, pressing his ear close. "My name is Marcus Washington. I'm the building maintenance technician. I need you to stop touching anything. You're making the electrical system unstable." A strangled voice came back, barely coherent. Get me out, now. I can't breathe, I can't." "Sir, I will get you out," Marcus said firmly, forcing calm into his voice even as his mind raced through scenarios. "But I need you to step away from the control panel. Don't touch anything, just sit down if you can, and try to breathe slowly. I'm right here, you're not alone." The sounds from inside the elevator told Marcus that his words weren't getting through. Fear had taken over, and whoever was trapped was beyond rational thought. Marcus could hear fingernails scraping against metal, desperate and futile. Time became critical. Marcus knew the backup batteries in the safety system would drain in about 20 minutes. After that, without power, the elevator could drop. Not far, there were mechanical catches, but far enough to injure or kill someone already panicking. He pried open the emergency access panel beside the elevator bank, revealing a maze of wires and circuits that would look like chaos to anyone else. To Marcus, it was a language he'd spent 20 years learning to read. His fingers moved with practiced precision, tracing the problem. The safety cutoff had triggered, but the manual override was burned out, probably from age and that damned emergency lever being yanked repeatedly. He'd have to bypass it, but that meant working with live electrical current while keeping one eye on the cable tension gauges. "Sir, I'm going to get the doors open, but it'll take a few minutes," Marcus called out, even though the only response was incoherent sounds of distress. "Stay with me, think about something good, think about your family, think about someone you love, focus on their face. That's all you need to do right now." Marcus pulled wire cutters from his belt and began the delicate work of rerouting the electrical flow. One wrong cut, and the whole system would shut down permanently. Or worse, the elevator could fall. Sweat dripped into Marcus's eyes as he worked, blurring his vision. The access panel was cramped, forcing him to work at an awkward angle that made his shoulders scream. Every few seconds, he'd call out to the trapped man, keeping up a steady stream of reassurance even when no coherent response came back. "I've got a daughter," Marcus said, his voice steady as his hands performed delicate surgery on the electrical system. "Her name's Lily, she's 6 years old, smartest kid you've ever met. She asked me yesterday why elevators don't fall down." He carefully stripped insulation from a wire. "I told her it's because people like me make sure they don't." A spark flared as he connected 2 circuits. Pain shot through his left hand. He'd touched an exposed wire. Marcus bit back a curse, shaking his hand briefly before continuing. "No time to stop, no time for pain. When I was a kid," he continued, partly to calm the man inside, and partly to steady his own nerves, "I used to take apart old radios and put them back together. Drove my mother crazy. She said I'd electrocute myself." Another wire connected, another step closer. She was probably right to worry. The sounds from inside the elevator had changed, less frantic now, maybe exhaustion setting in, or maybe the man was finally listening to Marcus's voice and finding something to hold onto besides panic. Marcus worked deeper into the system, his fingers moving by feel as much as sight. The backup power was draining fast, he could see it on the indicator lights. 8 minutes left, maybe 9 if he was lucky. He found the problem: a relay switch had fused closed, and the safety override had burned out trying to compensate. Marcus pulled a replacement relay from his toolkit, a part he'd salvaged from a junked panel 3 months ago, and kept because you never knew when you'd need it. His supervisor had mocked him for keeping trash. That trash was about to save a life. "Almost there, sir," Marcus called out. 60 seconds, maybe less. "You're doing great, just keep breathing." He spliced the new relay into place, his burned hand throbbing but steady. The final connection clicked home. Marcus flipped a manual override he'd rigged, held his breath, and pressed the emergency door release. For one terrible second, nothing happened. Then, with a mechanical groan and a hiss of hydraulics, the elevator doors began to slide open. Light flooded the elevator shaft. Harrison Fletcher stumbled forward, his expensive suit rumpled and sweat-stained, his silver hair disheveled, his face the color of old paste. He took 2 steps, then his legs gave out. Marcus caught him, taking the full weight of the older man as he collapsed. Together they sank to the floor of the hallway, Fletcher's body shaking with the aftermath of terror. "You're okay," Marcus said quietly, steadying the man. "You're safe now, it's over." Harrison Fletcher looked up at his rescuer for the first time, really looked at him. He saw a black man in a stained work uniform, with kind eyes and a nasty burn on his left hand that he was trying to hide. He saw someone who'd risked injury to save him, who'd talked him through hell with a stranger's patience. And Harrison Fletcher saw something else, a man he'd walked past in this building 100 times without ever actually seeing him. "You," Fletcher's voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "You saved my life." Marcus helped him to his feet, gentle but firm. "Just doing my job, sir. Let's get you somewhere you can sit down properly." "Your hand," Fletcher said, noticing the angry red burn. "You're hurt." Marcus glanced at it, then shrugged. "I've had worse. Come on, there's a bench right over there." As Marcus guided him down the hall, Fletcher's mind began to clear from the fog of panic. Questions formed, uncomfortable ones. How many times had he passed this man without acknowledgement? Had he ever known his name before tonight? How many Marcuses were invisible in his world, essential but unseen? They reached the bench, and Fletcher sat heavily, still trembling. Marcus crouched beside him, professional and calm, doing a quick visual check for injuries, even though it wasn't his job, wasn't his responsibility. "Marcus, you said?" Fletcher asked quietly. "Yes, sir." "Marcus Washington. How long have you worked here, Marcus?" 22 years, sir. Since the building opened. 22 years. Harrison Fletcher had owned the building for 15 of those years, and he'd never once known the name of the man who kept it running. The realization sat heavy in his chest, mixing uneasily with the lingering adrenaline. "I need to get you checked out by a doctor," Marcus said, standing, "and I should call someone for you." "Family?" Fletcher shook his head. "My wife died 6 years ago. My son lives in Boston. I'll be fine." "With respect, sir, you're not fine. You just went through a severe trauma. Let me call someone." The kindness in his voice, the genuine concern, struck Fletcher as both foreign and achingly necessary. When had anyone last spoken to him with simple human care, without an agenda or calculation behind it? "Why did you help me?" Fletcher asked suddenly, surprising himself with the question. Marcus looked puzzled. "Sir, you risked injury. You could have called the fire department and waited. Why did you stay?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said simply, "Because someone needed help, and I could give it. That's reason enough." Fletcher closed his eyes, feeling something shift inside him, something that had been calcified for decades. "Thank you," he said, and meant it more deeply than he'd meant anything in years. Marcus nodded, collected his scattered tools, and prepared to leave. He had a second job to get to, dishes to wash in a restaurant kitchen where the owner would yell at him for being late. He had a daughter to support, medical bills to pay, and no time to stand around accepting thanks from men who lived in a different world. But as he walked away, Harrison Fletcher watched him go, and something in the CEO's carefully constructed worldview began to crack. Marcus's hand throbbed as he pushed through the greasy kitchen doors of Sal's diner, 15 minutes late for his shift. The burn from the electrical wire screamed when he plunged his hands into the scalding dishwater, but he gritted his teeth and kept moving. "Washington," Sal's voice barked across the kitchen. "You're late again. What is it this time?" "Let me guess. The bus, traffic, dog ate your alarm clock." Sal Moretti was a stocky man with permanent scowl lines and a voice like gravel in a blender. He ran the diner like a fiefdom, squeezing every ounce of productivity from his workers while paying minimum wage and pocketing the difference. "Sorry, Sal. Emergency at the other job. I don't care if the president needed rescuing." Sal jabbed a thick finger toward the mountain of dishes. "You got 3 hours of work to do in 2 hours because Tommy called in sick. Again. And if you don't finish, it comes out of your pay." Clocks ticking. Marcus bent over the industrial sink, his shoulders already aching from the day's earlier exertions. Around him, the kitchen churned with noise, orders being shouted, grills sizzling, plates clattering. The heat was oppressive, adding another layer of exhaustion to his already depleted body. His burned hand made every movement agony, but he couldn't afford to slow down. He thought about Lily, about the physical therapy she needed, about the special leg braces that insurance wouldn't cover. He thought about the math tutoring she deserved, the future she should have. Every plate he washed was one step closer to giving her that future. "Move faster," Sal yelled from across the kitchen. "We got customers waiting." Marcus moved faster. Meanwhile, across the city in his penthouse apartment, overlooking Elliott Bay, Harrison Fletcher sat in his leather armchair, unable to sleep. The bottle of scotch beside him remained untouched. His hands had finally stopped shaking, but his mind wouldn't quiet. He kept seeing Marcus's face, the calm competence, the kindness without expectation of reward. He kept hearing his own question, "Why did you help me?" "Because someone needed help, and I could give it." When had Fletcher's life become so transactional that simple human decency seemed remarkable? When had he stopped seeing people who didn't exist in his social stratosphere? He thought about his late wife, Margaret, who'd volunteered at homeless shelters and food banks. "Everyone has a story, Harrison," she'd often told him. "Everyone matters." He'd nodded and written checks, which was easier than actually paying attention. Fletcher pulled out his laptop, and on impulse, searched the Sterling Innovations employee database. Marcus Washington, 22 years of service, perfect attendance record, 0 disciplinary actions, multiple commendations from past building managers, all noting his exceptional skill and reliability. His salary made Fletcher wince. In 22 years, Marcus had received exactly 3 raises, each barely above cost of living adjustments. His current wage was less than what the company paid for weekly coffee service in the executive suite. Fletcher dug deeper, finding Marcus's original employment application from 2 decades ago. High school diploma, no college, references from a community center, a church, and a neighbor who'd owned an appliance repair shop. The cover letter, handwritten, was 3 sentences: "I'm a hard worker, I learn fast, I won't let you down." He hadn't let them down. For 22 years, he'd kept his promise, and in return, he'd been invisible. Fletcher closed the laptop and stared out at the city lights. For the first time in decades, he felt ashamed. That night, Marcus trudged home at 2:30 in the morning, his body screaming for rest. His small apartment was dark and quiet when he entered. He dropped his keys onto the table with a soft clink, stood for a moment letting exhaustion wash over him, then moved silently to Lily's room. She was sleeping peacefully, her leg braces resting against the wall. Her breathing was soft and even. Marcus stood in the doorway, just watching her, this beautiful, brilliant child, who deserved so much more than he could give her. He thought about the offer he knew might never come, about dreams he'd learned to suppress, about futures that seemed to belong to other people's children. But then Lily stirred, mumbled something in her sleep, and smiled, and Marcus felt his resolve harden. He would keep fighting, keep working, keep hoping. For her he would endure anything. He whispered into the darkness, "I promise you'll have better, baby girl, I promise." Marcus arrived at Sterling Innovations the next morning at 6 a.m., same as always. His hand was bandaged now. He'd wrapped it himself after his diner shift ended, but it still hurt with every movement. He went through his usual routine, checking the HVAC system, testing emergency lights, inspecting the elevator cables. The executive elevator had been locked out overnight, pending a full safety inspection, which suited Marcus fine. He'd file his incident report, and someone in management would probably reprimand him for not following proper protocol, even though following protocol would have meant letting Harrison Fletcher panic in the dark for 2 hours while waiting for the fire department. He'd learned long ago not to expect recognition, just criticism. At 8:15, Marcus's supervisor, Dale Patterson, a middle-aged white man with perpetually suspicious eyes, cornered him in the maintenance office. "Washington, what the hell happened last night?" Dale's voice carried accusation before explanation. "You worked on the executive elevator without authorization. Do you know how much liability?" "Mr. Fletcher was trapped," Marcus said calmly, though his stomach tightened. "The electrical system was failing. I did what was necessary. What was necessary was calling emergency services. Dale's face reddened. You're not a certified elevator technician. You could have gotten someone killed. I'm writing you up for. You're not writing up anyone. Both men turned. Harrison Fletcher stood in the doorway, looking tired but composed in a fresh suit. His presence transformed the cramped maintenance office into something else entirely. Mr. Fletcher, Dale stammered, his demeanor shifting instantly. I was just explaining proper procedure to Mr. Washington saved my life last night, Fletcher said quietly, his eyes on Marcus. While I was trapped and terrified, he worked quickly and skillfully to free me. He sustained an injury in the process. He gestured to Marcus's bandaged hand. And now you want to write him up. Well, protocol states, Dale floundered. Protocol states that we value employees who show initiative and competence. Fletcher's voice carried the steel that had built an empire. Mr. Washington demonstrated both. If there's any paperwork to be done, it's a commendation, not a reprimand. Are we clear? Dale nodded mutely, his face cycling through shades of red and white. Fletcher turned to Marcus. Could I speak with you privately? My office, whenever you have a moment. Marcus found himself nodding, though confusion warred with wariness. Men like Harrison Fletcher didn't invite men like Marcus to their offices for friendly chats. This felt like the beginning of something, though whether good or bad remained to be seen. I'll come up at lunch, Marcus said. Fletcher nodded and left, his departure leaving an awkward silence behind. Dale waited exactly 5 seconds before saying, "Don't let this go to your head, Washington. You're still just maintenance," but his voice carried less conviction now, and Marcus noticed he avoided eye contact. The morning passed in its usual rhythm, but Marcus felt eyes following him, other staff members who'd somehow already heard about the rescue. Some looks were curious, some skeptical, a few were openly hostile, as if he'd committed some transgression by stepping outside his designated role. At noon, Marcus took the elevator, not the executive one, to the 20th floor. He'd been up here before, of course, but only to fix things, never to visit. Fletcher's assistant, a polished young woman named Jennifer, smiled at him with what seemed like genuine warmth. "Mr. Washington, Mr. Fletcher is expecting you. Go right in." The office was huge, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Harrison Fletcher sat behind a massive desk, but stood when Marcus entered. "Thank you for coming," Fletcher said, gesturing to a chair. "Please sit. How's your hand?" "It's fine, sir, just a burn. I've had worse." "That doesn't make it acceptable." Fletcher sat across from him, not behind the desk, a subtle gesture that nevertheless struck Marcus as significant. "I wanted to thank you properly, and to apologize." Marcus blinked. "Apologize? For being invisible to you?" Fletcher's voice was quiet but firm. "I've walked past you in this building for years. I've never said hello, never acknowledged your presence, never even wondered what your name was. That's inexcusable." "Sir, you're a busy man. You've got a company to run." "That's not an excuse, Marcus. May I call you Marcus?" "Of course. I'm not so busy that I can't treat people with basic respect." Fletcher leaned forward. "I looked at your employee file. 22 years, perfect record. You're clearly exceptional at what you do. So I have a question, and I want an honest answer. Why haven't you advanced? Why are you still in an entry-level position after 2 decades? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He could give the safe answer, the one that wouldn't rock any boats. But something in Fletcher's eyes, a genuine openness, maybe even remorse, made him choose truth instead. "Because I don't have a degree," Marcus said simply. "I've applied for supervisor positions 6 times over the years, never even got an interview. I've submitted ideas for improving efficiency, safety protocols, preventive maintenance schedules. They get filed away. I'm good at what I do, Mr. Fletcher, but in most people's eyes, I'm just the guy who fixes things. And a black guy without a degree, that's not someone you promote. That's someone you keep in the basement where he belongs." The words hung in the air, stark and uncomfortable. Marcus half expected Fletcher to bristle, to defend the company, to make excuses. Instead, Fletcher closed his eyes and nodded slowly. "You're right, and I'm sorry. I'm going to do something about it, if you'll let me. I'm not looking for charity, sir. This isn't charity, it's justice, which is different." Fletcher opened a folder on his desk. I want to offer you a position as Assistant Director of Facilities Management. It comes with a significant salary increase, proper benefits, and authority to make decisions about building operations. You'd report directly to the director, and frankly, given what I've seen, I expect you'll be running the department within a year. Marcus felt his heart race. It was everything he'd dreamed of, and everything he'd learned not to hope for. Why? He asked quietly. Because you've earned it, because it's overdue, and because Fletcher paused, searching for words, because last night you reminded me what excellence looks like. It's not about credentials or pedigree, it's about competence, dedication, and character. You have all three. People will say you're only doing this because I saved your life. Let them say it. You did save my life, and I'm grateful, but that's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing it because it's right. Fletcher slid a paper across the desk. Think about it. No pressure, but I hope you'll say yes. Marcus looked at the offer letter, at the salary that would change Lily's life. That would mean no more midnight dish shifts, no more choosing between groceries and medicine. I'll need to think about it, he said, though his heart was already screaming yes. Take all the time you need. Fletcher stood, extending his hand. And Marcus, thank you again, for everything. As Marcus left the office, his mind spun with possibilities and fears. This could be the beginning of something better, or it could be a trap, a way to parade him around, as the company's token diversity hire, before finding an excuse to push him back down. Only one way to find out. That evening, Marcus sat on the floor of his small apartment with Lily helping her with a science project about simple machines. Her leg braces lay beside them. She'd taken them off for comfort, and she worked with the intense focus she brought to everything. "Dad, why do levers make lifting easier?" she asked, her dark eyes curious. "Because they let you use distance instead of strength," Marcus explained, demonstrating with a ruler and a small block. "See, same amount of work, but distributed differently." Lily experimented, her face lighting up with understanding. "That's so cool. It's like the weight doesn't change, but how you deal with it does." Marcus smiled, struck by the metaphor. How you deal with it. Maybe that's what Fletcher was offering, not a change in the weight Marcus carried, but a different lever to lift it with. "Lily baby, what would you think if Daddy got a new job? A better one, where I wouldn't have to work at the restaurant anymore." Lily's face transformed with joy. "Really, you mean we could have dinner together every night?" "Maybe not every night, but a lot more nights." She threw her arms around him, squeezing tight. "That would be the best thing ever." Marcus held his daughter, feeling the weight of responsibility and hope mixing together. For her he'd take the risk. For her he'd believe that maybe, just maybe, something good could last. The next morning, Marcus walked into Harrison Fletcher's office and accepted the position. The announcement of Marcus's promotion hit Sterling Innovations like a stone through still water, sending ripples of reaction through every department. Some responses were positive. The janitorial staff threw him an impromptu celebration in the break room, with grocery store cake and genuine happiness. The younger engineers, who'd always been friendly, congratulated him warmly, but other reactions ran dark with resentment. "Affirmative action hire," Marcus heard whispered in the hallway. "Saved the boss's life, now he's getting rewarded." Someone muttered in the cafeteria, just loud enough to be heard. "Next they'll be promoting the janitors to VP, came a bitter joke from a cluster of middle managers. Marcus absorbed it all with outward calm, though each comment landed like a small cut. He'd expected this, had braced for it, but expecting pain didn't make it hurt less. The worst opposition came from Gerald Hartman, the current director of facilities management and Marcus's new supervisor. Hartman was 60 years old, white, with thin gray hair, and a perpetual expression suggesting he'd bitten into something sour. He'd held his position for 12 years and ruled his department like a feudal lord. Their first meeting was in Hartman's office, cramped and cluttered with binders and outdated equipment manuals. "So," Hartman said, not offering Marcus a seat, "the hero gets his reward." "I'm here to do good work, Mr. Hartman." "Same as always." "Right. Well, let me be clear, Washington. I don't care whose life you saved or who's backing you. In this department, you follow my rules and my systems. You don't make changes, you don't question procedures, and you certainly don't go over my head to Fletcher. Understood?" Marcus met his eyes steadily. "I understand you're my supervisor. I'm here to learn and contribute." "Learn? You?" Hartman's laugh was harsh. You've been cleaning floors for 20 years, now suddenly you're management material. Please. We both know what this is, optics. Fletcher gets to look progressive, you get a fancy title, and in 6 months when you can't handle the real work, you'll go back where you belong. The words were designed to wound, to make Marcus shrink back. A year ago they might have worked, but something had changed in Marcus. Maybe it was Fletcher's unexpected faith in him. Maybe it was Lily's joy at having her father home more. Maybe it was simply that after 22 years of being invisible, he was done apologizing for taking up space. I'll do my best to prove you wrong, Mr. Hartman, Marcus said quietly. Starting today. The learning curve was steep and brutal. Marcus had known the mechanical systems intimately, but management meant budgets, vendor contracts, safety compliance reports, staffing schedules, and endless meetings where people spoke in acronyms and corporate jargon that felt designed to exclude him. He spent his evenings poring over management textbooks borrowed from the library, taking notes until his eyes burned. He watched YouTube videos on business communication, on leadership strategies, on navigating office politics. He learned spreadsheet formulas and project management software, each small victory hard won. Lily would do her homework at the kitchen table, while Marcus studied at the other end, both of them working in companionable silence. Sometimes she'd explain her math problems to him, and Marcus would marvel at how naturally learning came to her, how different her path could be from his. You're going to college, baby girl. He'd tell her. You're going to have every opportunity. Will you come to my graduation? She'd ask, her face serious. Front row, center seat. I promise. At work, Marcus faced constant testing. Hartman would assign him complex tasks with inadequate instructions, then criticize his approach. Vendors would dismiss him, assuming he lacked authority. Other department heads would schedule meetings without inviting him, then express surprise when he pointed out the oversight. But Marcus had spent his life navigating systems designed to exclude him. He knew how to persist, how to document everything, how to kill hostility with competence and professionalism. Slowly, grudgingly, he began to earn respect from some quarters. The maintenance staff, who'd always liked him, now came to him with ideas they'd been afraid to share with Hartman. Marcus listened, implemented the good ones, and made sure his team got credit. The junior engineers discovered that Marcus could solve problems they'd been struggling with, offering practical solutions grounded in experience rather than theory. Word spread. Washington knows his stuff, but Hartman remained a constant obstacle, undermining Marcus at every turn, taking credit for successes and blaming failures on his inexperienced assistant. Harrison Fletcher watched from above, saw the challenges Marcus faced, and felt his respect grow. He also felt shame at the culture he'd allowed to fester in his company, the casual prejudice, the boys' club mentality, the way competence was valued less than pedigree. He'd built this empire, but he'd been blind to its foundations. Fletcher began making changes, some subtle, some not. He sat in on department meetings, his presence forcing civility if not genuine respect. He made it clear that Marcus had his full support. He started reviewing promotion decisions more carefully, asking uncomfortable questions about why certain people advanced and others didn't. It wasn't enough, he knew that. But it was a start. 4 months into Marcus's new position, the real test came. Sterling Innovations was preparing for its most important product launch in a decade, an accessibility technology platform, designed to help people with disabilities navigate the world more independently. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus, whose daughter was exactly the kind of person this technology could help. The launch event was scheduled for Friday, with tech journalists, investors, and disability advocates flying in from across the country. The company had spent millions on development and marketing. Everything had to be perfect. On Monday morning, the building's main server room overheated. It started with a simple alarm, a temperature sensor showing readings slightly above normal. Nothing critical, not yet. The IT department investigated, found nothing obvious, and dismissed it as a faulty sensor. By Tuesday afternoon, servers were throttling performance to prevent damage. The development team's work slowed to a crawl. The marketing department couldn't access their files. Panic began to ripple through the company. IT brought in an outside specialist, a consultant who charged $500 an hour, and spent Wednesday running diagnostic tests that revealed nothing useful. The server room temperature continued climbing. By Thursday morning, with 24 hours until the launch event, the situation had become critical. Servers were shutting down to protect themselves. The demo software for the launch wouldn't run. Harrison Fletcher called an emergency meeting of department heads. Marcus sat in the conference room, one of 15 people around the table. Hartman had tried to leave him out, but Fletcher had personally insisted on his presence. Options, Fletcher said, his voice tight with controlled stress. I need options. The IT director spoke first. We've checked everything. The cooling system is running. The fans are operational, but something's wrong with the heat dissipation. We need to move the launch. Moving isn't an option, the marketing director countered. We've got 200 people flying in, media coverage scheduled, a venue booked. Moving means losing momentum and looking incompetent. Then we need a solution in the next 12 hours. Fletcher said. Anyone? Silence around the table. The outside consultant had already admitted defeat and stopped billing hours. Gerald Hartman cleared his throat. With respect, this is an IT infrastructure problem, not a facilities issue. But he paused dramatically. I do have concerns about recent changes in our maintenance protocols. When you make personnel decisions based on sentiment rather than qualifications, you sometimes discover gaps in expertise at critical moments. His meaning was clear, his gaze sliding toward Marcus. Several people shifted uncomfortably. Marcus felt his jaw tighten but kept his face neutral. Are you suggesting this is somehow Mr. Washington's fault? Fletcher's voice was dangerously quiet. I'm suggesting that when you promote people beyond their competence level, oversights can occur. Perhaps our preventive maintenance schedules haven't been maintained as rigorously as. The maintenance schedules are perfect, one of the senior engineers interrupted, surprising everyone. I've reviewed them myself. Washington's been doing exceptional work. Hartman's face reddened. Nevertheless, in a crisis we need proven expertise, not on-the-job training. Marcus had remained silent through this exchange, but now he spoke. May I see the server room schematics? What? Hartman looked annoyed at the interruption. The architectural plans for the server room, and the maintenance logs for the HVAC system serving that space. For the past year. Why? The IT director sounded skeptical. Because I might know what's wrong. Hartman laughed, a harsh bark. You think you can solve what a $500 an hour consultant couldn't? Marcus looked at Fletcher, who nodded. Get him whatever he needs. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in the server room, studying plans spread across a table, while servers hummed around him, their fans running at maximum speed. The temperature was 89 degrees and climbing. He traced ventilation routes with his finger, cross-referenced with maintenance logs, and felt pieces clicking into place in his mind. When was the last renovation to this floor? He asked the IT director, who'd followed him down. About 18 months ago, we expanded the server capacity, added new racks. Did you modify the ventilation system? No. Why would we? The cooling system was already here. Marcus tapped the schematic, because the original ventilation was designed for half this heat load. When you added servers, you increased heat output by 60%, but the exhaust capacity stayed the same. The cooling system compensated, the IT director said. It worked fine for a year. It worked fine until the exhaust duct here. Marcus pointed to a section of the plan, started accumulating debris. Normal dust and fiber buildup over 18 months, nothing dramatic, but slowly restricting airflow. The cooling system pumps cold air in, but the hot air can't get out fast enough. It's like trying to cool a room with the windows closed. The IT director stared at the plans, then at Marcus. The duct you're talking about is behind a sealed wall. There's no access panel. There is, Marcus said. It's just hidden. Original construction plans show a maintenance hatch. The renovations covered it with drywall, probably without realizing it was there. You're saying we need to cut through a wall. I'm saying I need to cut through a wall, yes, and clean out that duct, and install a booster fan to increase exhaust capacity. It'll take about 8 hours if I start now. 8 hours. The launch is in 24 hours, and we need the servers running for final testing. Then I better get started. Marcus assembled his team, 3 trusted technicians who'd worked with him for years. Together they performed what amounted to surgical intervention on the building's infrastructure. Marcus directed the work with quiet confidence, his hands steady as they cut through drywall, exposing the hidden access panel. They rigged a vacuum system to pull debris from the duct without spreading it through the server room. They installed a commercial exhaust fan Marcus had identified in storage, modifying it to fit the existing ductwork with custom brackets he fabricated on site. The work required precision and creativity, combining mechanical knowledge with improvisation. At 3 a.m., Marcus turned on the modified system and watched the temperature gauges with his team gathered around. Slowly, degree by degree, the temperature dropped. By 7 a.m., when the morning shift arrived, the server room was at optimal temperature. Every server was running smoothly. Marcus sent his exhausted team home and stayed to monitor the system, too wired on adrenaline to sleep. Harrison Fletcher found him there 2 hours later, reviewing performance logs to ensure stability. "Did it work?" Fletcher asked, though the answer was obvious from the humming servers and normal temperature readings. "It worked. System stable. Your launch is good to go." Fletcher pulled up a chair and sat beside him, his expensive suit incongruous in the technical space. "You saved us, again." "Just solving problems, sir. That's what you pay me for." "No, Marcus, I pay you a salary. What you gave us, what you've given this company for 22 years, goes far beyond any paycheck." Fletcher was quiet for a moment. Gerald Hartman put in his resignation this morning. Effective immediately. Marcus looked up sharply. "Because of what he said in the meeting?" "Partly, but mostly because I've been documenting his behavior for months, and yesterday was the final straw. His prejudice, his obstruction, his complete failure of leadership, none of it is acceptable." Fletcher met Marcus's eyes. "I'm offering you his position, Director of Facilities Management. Full authority, full support. You've earned it 10 times over." Marcus was silent, processing this. Director, not just assistant, but the actual leadership role. It was what he'd dreamed of, what he'd worked for, what he'd been denied for so long. People will say whatever they want. Let them. You've proven yourself beyond any reasonable doubt. The question is, do you want it? Marcus thought about Lily, about the future he was building for her. He thought about the maintenance staff who deserved better leadership than Hartman had provided. He thought about all the invisible people in all the basements and back rooms, keeping the world running while others took credit. "Yes," he said. "I want it." Fletcher smiled and stood, offering Marcus his hand to help him up. "Then it's yours. Take the day off. Spend it with your daughter. The launch will be fine. You've already done the hard part." Marcus accepted the help up, feeling the weight of exhaustion and triumph mixing together. "I'd like to attend the launch, if that's okay. I want to see what we're working for." "Front row seat, I insist." The product launch was flawless. The accessibility platform demonstration brought tears to several attendees' eyes, including Marcus's. He watched people with various disabilities navigate the software effortlessly, and thought about Lily, about how technology like this could transform her world. Harrison Fletcher mentioned him by name in his speech, telling the story of the last-minute crisis and the man who'd solved it. "Excellence has no pedigree," Fletcher told the crowd. "It simply is, and Marcus Washington embodies excellence in every sense of the word." The applause was genuine, sustained. Marcus stood awkwardly, unused to recognition, and nodded his thanks before sitting back down quickly. After the event, several people approached him. Journalists wanting quotes, investors asking about his background, disability advocates thanking him for his work. Each conversation felt surreal, as if he'd stepped into someone else's life. But the most meaningful moment came when a young black engineer from the development team pulled him aside. "Mr. Washington, I just wanted to say, seeing you up there, seeing you recognized like that." The young man's voice was thick with emotion. "I've been with this company for 3 years. I've felt invisible the whole time. But today, you made me believe things could change. Thank you." Marcus gripped his shoulder. "They can change. They will change. We just have to keep showing up, keep doing excellent work, keep proving them wrong." That evening, Marcus picked Lily up from his sister's house, where she'd been staying during his all-nighter. She was full of questions about the big important day, and Marcus answered them all while driving home through Seattle's evening traffic. "Dad, did you really fix the whole building?" she asked, her eyes wide. "I fixed one part of one system, baby girl. Nobody fixes a whole building by themselves." "But you saved the day." Marcus smiled. I helped. That's what we do. We help when we can. They stopped for dinner at Lily's favorite restaurant, a splurge, but Marcus felt they'd earned it. Over burgers and milkshakes, Lily told him about her science project, about her friend's birthday party invitation, about the new book she was reading. These moments, Marcus thought, these ordinary precious moments with his daughter. This was what success actually meant, not titles or recognition, but time. Time to be present, time to listen, time to be a father instead of an exhausted ghost passing through his own life. Dad, Lily's voice turned serious. Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. Why do you ask? You smile more now. Before, when you came home from work, you looked tired, sad, maybe, but now you look different. Marcus reached across the table and took her small hand. I am happy, Lily, happier than I've been in a long time. You know why? She shook her head. Because I'm becoming the person I always wanted to be. Someone who doesn't just survive, but someone who builds things, who helps people, who makes a difference. And because I get to show you that anything is possible if you work hard and believe in yourself, and have good people helping you, Lily added wisely. Marcus laughed. Yes, and have good people helping you. You're absolutely right. The following weeks brought changes to Sterling Innovations that rippled beyond Marcus's promotion. Fletcher had begun a genuine reckoning with the company's culture, bringing in consultants to assess diversity and inclusion, restructuring hiring practices, and making it clear that prejudice would no longer be tolerated. It wasn't perfect. Change never came without resistance. Some employees left, unable or unwilling to adapt. Others dug in their heels, performing malicious compliance while harboring resentment, but many more embraced the shift. People who'd felt invisible began to speak up. Ideas that had been dismissed suddenly got heard. The maintenance staff, now led by Marcus, became a model of efficiency and innovation, implementing new systems that saved the company money while improving working conditions. Marcus hired 2 new technicians, both from non-traditional backgrounds, a former Navy mechanic who'd been struggling to transition to civilian work, and a young woman who taught herself electrical systems while working construction. He recognized their potential the way Fletcher had recognized his. Everyone deserves a chance, Marcus told them on their first day. I'm giving you that chance because someone gave it to me. Now let's do excellent work and prove why that was the right decision. Harrison Fletcher, for his part, found himself transformed by the experience. His conversations with Marcus had forced him to confront assumptions he hadn't even known he held. He began attending community events, visiting technical schools, talking to young people from disadvantaged backgrounds about careers in technology. His son called from Boston, surprised by the change. Dad, you sound different. What happened? I got saved, Fletcher said. Twice. Once from an elevator and once from my own blindness. He established a scholarship fund in his late wife's name, specifically for students pursuing technical careers without traditional academic paths. Marcus helped him design the criteria, ensuring it would reach people who actually needed it. But the most significant change came 6 months after the elevator incident, when Sterling Innovations announced a new employee development program, formal apprenticeships that would allow people without degrees to advance through technical and managerial ranks based on demonstrated competence. Marcus helped design the program, drawing on his own experience to create a path others could follow. The first cohort included janitors, cafeteria workers, security guards, people who'd been invisible, who had talents that had never been recognized. This is your legacy, Fletcher told Marcus during the program launch. Not the servers you fixed or the systems you improved, but the doors you're opening for others. Marcus thought about that, about legacy. He thought about his daughter, who was thriving now, walking better with new braces, excelling in her technology classes, already talking about becoming an engineer. He thought about the young engineer who'd thanked him, about the apprentices just starting their journeys. I'm just paying forward what you gave me, Marcus said. No, Fletcher replied. You earned every bit of what you have. I just finally saw what was already there. The real legacy is that now I'm teaching others to see it too. Over the following months, Marcus settled into his role as director. The challenges didn't disappear. Some people remained skeptical, some vendors still questioned his authority, but each day brought more acceptance, more respect earned through consistent excellence. He established new protocols that improved safety and efficiency. He mentored his team, teaching them not just technical skills but how to navigate a professional world that didn't always welcome them. He became known throughout the company as someone who solved problems others couldn't, who saw solutions where others saw only obstacles. And gradually, steadily, Marcus began to feel something he'd never quite experienced before. He belonged. Not as an interloper or a token but as a valued leader whose contributions mattered. The work was demanding, and there were still nights when he came home exhausted. But now when Lily asked, "Did you have a good day, Dad?" he could honestly answer yes more often than not. One evening, about 8 months after his promotion to director, Marcus received an unexpected call. It was from a technical college in Seattle, asking if he'd be willing to speak to their students about career paths and facilities management. "We've heard about your story," the dean said, "about how you advanced without a traditional degree. Our students, many of them are first-generation college students working full-time while taking classes. They need to hear from someone like you." Marcus accepted immediately. The following week he stood before a lecture hall of 50 students, many of them tired from working full shifts before class, many struggling to believe their efforts would lead anywhere. He told them his story, not as a fairy tale, but as the truth. The years of invisibility, the constant doubt, the doors that stayed closed, but also the persistence, the self-education, the refusal to accept limitations others tried to impose. "You will face people who underestimate you," Marcus told them, "who assume you're less capable because of where you come from or how you got here. Don't waste energy being angry, use that energy to prove them wrong. Let your work speak so loudly they can't ignore it." A young woman in the front row raised her hand. "But what if proving yourself isn't enough? What if they still don't see you?" Marcus thought about that question, about all the years before Fletcher. "Sometimes it isn't enough," he said honestly. "Sometimes the system is broken, and individual excellence can't fix it. But you keep going anyway, because eventually you might find one person willing to look past their assumptions. One person who sees your worth. And that one person might be in a position to change things." He paused, then added, "And if you never find that person, you become that person for someone else. You create the opportunities you were denied. That's how change happens, one decision at a time, one opportunity at a time." The students gave him a standing ovation. Afterward, several approached with questions, with thanks, with their own stories of struggle and persistence. Marcus stayed for 2 hours, talking to each one, offering advice and encouragement. Driving home that night, he felt a profound sense of purpose. This was bigger than his own success. This was about creating pathways for others, about ensuring that talent and determination would be recognized regardless of background. This was about making sure the next Marcus Washington wouldn't have to wait 22 years to be seen. Nearly 3 years after the elevator incident, Sterling Innovations won a national award for workplace innovation and inclusivity. The ceremony was in Washington, D.C., and Harrison Fletcher insisted that Marcus accompany him to accept the award together. On the flight east, they sat in first class, Marcus's first time, and talked about how far things had come. "I've been thinking about retiring soon," Fletcher said casually. "Not immediately, but within 2 years. I'll be 66 next month. Time to let younger people lead." Marcus nodded. "You've built something remarkable, sir. You should be proud." "I'm proud of what we're building now," Fletcher corrected. "What I built before was incomplete, flawed. It took almost dying in an elevator to see that clearly. And it took almost dying in an elevator for me to get a chance," Marcus said wryly. Fletcher was quiet for a moment. "I wish that wasn't true. I wish I'd been wise enough to see your potential 20 years ago, but I wasn't. The question is what we do with the time we have left." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Sterling Innovations needs leadership that reflects its values. Someone who understands what it's like to be underestimated, who fights for the people others don't see." Fletcher turned to face Marcus directly. "I'm thinking in 2 years when I step down, you should be seriously considered for Chief Operations Officer." Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. "Sir, I appreciate your faith, but it's exactly what this company needs," Fletcher said firmly. "You have the technical expertise, the leadership skills, and most importantly the character. You've proven yourself 100 times over, so yes, you should be seriously considered, more than considered, you should be prepared." The possibility hung between them, both daunting and exhilarating. 3 years ago Marcus had been invisible, washing dishes and changing light bulbs. Now he was being groomed for executive leadership. It was almost too much to believe, except that he'd learned something important. Believing in possibility was the first step toward making it real. The awards ceremony was elegant and surreal. Marcus stood on stage beside Fletcher, both of them accepting a crystal trophy for transformative workplace culture. Cameras flashed, people applauded. Marcus gave a brief speech about the power of seeing potential in unexpected places, about the excellence that exists everywhere if you're willing to look. Afterward, at the reception, he was approached by CEOs, journalists and policymakers. Everyone wanted to know the secret to Sterling Innovation's transformation. There's no secret, Marcus told them. You just have to value people based on what they contribute, not where they come from. You have to be willing to be wrong about your assumptions. And you have to actually care about creating fairness, not just talking about it. Some of them nodded enthusiastically, and Marcus suspected they'd do nothing. But others asked real questions, took notes, exchanged business cards. Seeds planted, he thought. Maybe some would grow. On the flight home, exhausted but satisfied, Marcus checked his phone to find a video message from Lily. She was standing in their small apartment, wearing her leg braces and a huge smile. "Dad, look." In the video she walked 10 steps without holding on to anything, her movements still careful but growing more confident. "My therapist says I'm making amazing progress. I miss you, come home soon." Marcus watched the video 3 times, feeling his throat tighten with pride and love. Everything he'd done, the long nights, the extra studying, the risks taken, it had all been for moments like this, for his daughter's future, and for the futures of all the invisible people who deserved to be seen. Fletcher, half asleep in the seat beside him, opened one eye. "Good news, my daughter, she's walking better every day." "That's wonderful." Fletcher closed his eye again, then opened it once more. "Marcus, thank you. For what? For not giving up on me. For being patient with an old fool who needed to learn some very basic lessons about humanity. For showing me what really matters." Marcus smiled. "You saved me too, Mr. Fletcher." "Fair trade, Harrison. After everything, I think you can call me Harrison. Maybe someday, but not yet. I still work for you." Fletcher chuckled. "Only for 2 more years, then you might be my boss." The thought was absurd and wonderful, terrifying and right. Marcus looked out the window at the clouds below, thinking about the journey that had brought him here, from invisible to indispensable, from maintenance man to executive prospect. But more than that, from forgotten to seen, from dismissed to valued, from an afterthought to someone who mattered. The plane descended through the clouds toward Seattle. Marcus thought about tomorrow, about getting back to work, about the 100 small ways he could continue opening doors for others the way Harrison Fletcher had opened doors for him. He thought about Lily's smile in that video, about her growing confidence, about the future stretching ahead of her, limitless, full of possibility. He thought about the young people in the apprenticeship program, about the technicians on his team, about all the people doing invisible work that kept the world running. And he thought about the simple truth that had changed everything. Excellence has no pedigree. Character can't be taught in a classroom. Worth isn't measured in degrees or status, but in the content of your actions when it matters most. The plane touched down softly. Marcus gathered his things, ready to go home to his daughter, ready to return to work, ready for whatever came next. Because now he knew something he'd once only hoped, that change was possible, that justice could be won, that a maintenance man from nowhere special could become someone who mattered. Not because of what had been given to him, but because of what he'd always been: excellent. Nearly 2 years after that awards ceremony, at Sterling Innovation's annual company meeting, Harrison Fletcher stood at the podium for what everyone knew would be his final address as CEO. His retirement announcement had been public for months, and today he would introduce the executive team that would lead the company forward. But first he told a story. "Nearly 5 years ago, I got stuck in an elevator," he began. "I was terrified, literally paralyzed with fear, and a man I'd never bothered to notice saved my life. His name was Marcus Washington, and he was our maintenance technician." The audience, hundreds of employees filling the auditorium, listened quietly. Many knew this story, but hearing it from Fletcher himself gave it new weight. "That night changed my life," Fletcher continued. It forced me to ask hard questions about who I was, what this company stood for, and who we valued. The answers weren't comfortable. We'd built an empire, but we'd done it on a foundation of exclusion and blindness. We rewarded credentials over competence, pedigree over performance. We let talented people languish in positions beneath their abilities because they didn't fit our narrow definition of leadership potential. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. Today I'm proud to say we've become something better. We've built systems that recognize talent wherever it exists. We've created opportunities for people from all backgrounds. We've proven that a company can be both profitable and principled. Fletcher smiled. And none of that would have happened without Marcus Washington. He didn't just save my life that night in the elevator. He saved this company's soul. The audience erupted in applause. Marcus, sitting in the front row beside his daughter Lily, now 9 years old and walking confidently with minimal support from her braces, felt his face warm with embarrassment and pride. So it gives me tremendous pleasure, Fletcher said, to announce that Sterling Innovation's new Chief Operations Officer, effective immediately, is Marcus Washington. The applause became thunderous. People stood genuinely celebrating. Marcus rose slowly, helped Lily to her feet, and together they walked to the stage. At the podium, Marcus looked out at faces that represented the change he'd fought for, a diverse, talented workforce that reflected the world outside these walls. Nearly 5 years ago, Marcus said, his voice steady and clear, I was invisible. Today I stand here not because I've changed who I am, but because this company changed how it sees. That's what I'm most proud of, not my title, but the fact that after me, there will be others. People who don't look like traditional executives, who don't have typical backgrounds, who took unconventional paths to get here. And they'll succeed because we've built a place where excellence is recognized regardless of where it comes from. He looked at Harrison Fletcher. Thank you for taking that first step, for having the courage to question your own assumptions, for showing that change is possible even when it's uncomfortable. Then Marcus looked at his daughter, and Lily, this is for you. So you grow up in a world that sees your potential from day one. So you never have to be invisible. Lily beamed, radiant and confident, her eyes shining with pride in her father. As Marcus concluded his speech and the ceremony moved on to other business, he felt a profound sense of completion. Not that the journey was over, there was always more work to do, more barriers to break, more people to lift up. But for now, in this moment, he allowed himself to feel what he'd earned. Pride, satisfaction, and the deep knowledge that his life mattered, that his work mattered, that he had changed things for the better. The maintenance man had become invisible no more, and in becoming visible, he'd helped others see themselves more clearly too. That was the real triumph, not personal success, but collective transformation. Not just opening one door, but building a world with more doors than walls. As the meeting ended and people filed out, Harrison Fletcher approached Marcus one last time. Ready for this? The older man asked with a gentle smile. Marcus looked at his daughter, then at the crowd of employees, his employees now filing past with congratulations and respect. I've been ready my whole life, Marcus said. I just needed someone to see it. No, Fletcher replied. You just needed someone to stop being blind. The readiness was always there. They shook hands, then embraced, two men from different worlds who'd found common ground in the crisis of one desperate night, and built something beautiful from the ruins of old prejudices. That evening Marcus took Lily to their favorite park near the waterfront. She wanted to try the walking trail without her braces, something her physical therapist had recently approved for short distances. Are you sure, baby girl? Marcus asked, hovering protectively. Dad, I can do this, she said, with the confidence of a child who'd overcome so much. Trust me. So Marcus walked beside her, close enough to catch her if she stumbled, but far enough to let her prove what she could do. Lily made it 50 yards before her legs grew tired, and Marcus carried her the rest of the way, her arms wrapped around his neck. Dad, she said, as they sat on a bench overlooking Elliott Bay. I'm proud of you too, baby. You work so hard. No, I mean, she struggled to find the words. I'm proud that you never gave up, even when things were hard. You showed me that you can do anything if you keep trying. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. You showed me the same thing, Lily. Every day watching you work so hard to get stronger, you inspire me more than you know. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the water, the sky turning brilliant shades of orange and pink. Marcus thought about the journey that had brought them here. The years of struggle and invisibility, the moment in the elevator that changed everything, the slow, difficult climb to recognition and respect, the doors that had opened and the doors he was now opening for others. He thought about Harrison Fletcher, about the unlikely friendship that had formed between two men who should have remained strangers, about how one person's willingness to see differently could create ripples that transformed everything. Most of all he thought about the future, for Lily, for the young people in the apprenticeship program, for everyone who'd ever been told they weren't good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough to matter. "What are you thinking about?" Lily asked. "About how far we've come," Marcus said, "and how far we still get to go." "Are you happy, Dad?" It was the same question she'd asked years ago, but now his answer carried a weight of truth it hadn't held before. "Yes, baby girl, I am truly happy, because I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to do, and I have you." Lily hugged him tight. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, Lily, more than anything in this world." As they walked back to the car, Lily's hand in his, Marcus felt a profound sense of peace. The invisible man had been seen. The overlooked worker had become a leader. The father had built a better future for his daughter. But more than any of that, Marcus Washington had proven something essential: that excellence has no pedigree, that character transcends credentials, and that every person, regardless of where they start, deserves to be seen for who they truly are. Outside, the Seattle sun broke through clouds, casting light across the city. Somewhere, people were doing invisible work, fixing, cleaning, building, maintaining the infrastructure that kept everything running. Somewhere, talented people were waiting for their chance, working twice as hard for half the recognition. But at Sterling Innovations, at least, they would be seen. They would be valued. They would be given the opportunities they deserved. Because a maintenance man had saved a CEO's life, and both men had learned that excellence has no pedigree, it simply is. And that changed everything.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.